Exam review, problem number 24. Solve the following equation. So the first thing we want to do is to factor the denominator that's on the right. So we want to factor this. This is called the difference of perfect squares. So we're going to rewrite this as 2 over x plus 1 plus 1 over x minus 1, and we're going to rewrite this as 17 over x plus 1 times x minus 1. Now the reason we did that is so we can find our LCD, which is our least common denominator. When you're adding or subtracting fractions, you need a least common denominator. So the LCD is actually the x plus 1 times the x minus 1. That's our LCD. All right, now that we know our LCD, what is this first fraction missing in its denominator? Well, it's missing the x minus 1 times the x minus 1, so we're going to multiply it times x minus 1 times x minus 1. Now, the second fraction is missing the x plus 1, so we're going to multiply that fraction by x plus 1 over x plus 1. I squeeze it in there. And the denominator, the fraction on the right, it already has the common denominator, so we're good to go. So on the left, we've got 2 times x minus 1 plus 1 times x plus 1 equals 17. I'm not even going to write that common denominator because what we just did was get a common denominator. And remember that two fractions can only be equal if their denominators are equal. For example, is 1/4 equal to 3/4? No. If they're both a 4 on the bottom, then the top both has to be a 1, or they both have to be a 3, so these two are not equal to each other. So now that I've got this common denominator, the only way the left can be equal to the right is if the left numerator equals the right numerator. All right, now I'm going to distribute my 2 and distribute my 1. 2 times x minus 1 is 2x minus 2, plus 1 times x is x, and 1 times 1 is 1, equals 17. Combine my like terms, so I get 3x minus 1, 3x minus 1 equals 17. Add 1 to both sides, and I get 3x equals 18. And divide both sides by 3, and I get x equals 6. Now there's just one caution here. Remember that the denominator of a fraction can never be 0, so you want to make sure that you go back and make sure that solution doesn't make these denominators 0. And 6 won't make them zeros. The only thing that could have made those zeros would have been a positive 1 or a negative 1. So x equals 6 is our solution.